Chers auditeurs,
Dear listeners,
bonjour.
welcome to Comme d'Archi Podcast Season 6.
Saison 6, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
And in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci
Thank you
d'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
to be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
and Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Dear listeners, this is Esther on behalf of Anne-Charlotte. Welcome to the first Comme d'Archi of 2025 with a new spot format to get the year off to a smooth start before a series of interviews lasting several months. Softly but energetically with the theme of transition and more specifically back to SIMI Transitions 2025 in Perspective. As you know, the SIMI is the annual Parisian real estate trade show, a must-attend event that takes place every year at the Palais des Congrès de la Porte Maillot in Paris and gleans everything that goes to make up a project, from investors and promoters to builders and architects, of course. Among the latter, a few are present as exhibitors. They come mainly as visitors to meet their clients or to be identified. Many developers have stands, as do local authorities. But before going any further, I'd like to wish you once again a happy and prosperous 2025. Let's do without politics and move forward. My feeling is that we need to rediscover our values, our compasses, our roots, and come up with ideas to make the transition effective. Recently, Aldrich Beckman, in Comme d'Archi, spoke along these lines. We need ideas, real ideas. Today, we are burning, being blown away by the winds, drowned by the waves. Let's leave the skeptics to their certainties. We don't have time for polemics. The facts are there. No matter where the disruption comes from, it's there and at many levels. Let's bring all our ideas. Let's keep rolling up our sleeves. Let's stop the factory of misery. Quite a program. What do you think? At the SIMI, I was very interested in gleaning opinions and answers on this point, putting the transition to 2025 into perspective, and the SIMI, an institutional trade show, as a high point. Of course, there's always the MIPIM show in Cannes, which is global in scope. But the SIMI remains unmissable. As proof of this, on the second day of the show, it was impossible to get around in the aisles. Every year, it gets worse and worse, which is why, by the end of 2025, the show is likely to move. But let's get back to the transition. 2 players responded to me at Brûle-Pourpoint, and I thank them very much. Gabriel Franc himself, head of the Franc Architecture Group, a long-time exhibitor at the show, and Jérôme Martinez from the wood and forestry sector. For Gabriel Franc, and I quote, "The subject of transition is vast, and we have little guidance, even if the latest technical regulations do provide some. But the bills are out of step and tend to lack coordination with the professional world. It's symptomatic of a malaise in this inevitable march towards transition. Of course, it's becoming necessary to build zero-carbon or low-carbon buildings, to respect the environment while maintaining an economy, and to work on biodiversity issues. But do we always really have the means to carry out such projects? The means at our disposal are new technologies and laws. But builders are groping their way and architects are trying to orchestrate all this. And one point we don't talk about is money. We need to house people, deal with precariousness, poor housing. Nearly 4 million people in France are poorly housed. But ambitions are costly. The big laboratory represents resources, and a big gap is opening up with the concerns of the population. We're going to be caught up in this pressure. For this reason, I believe that by 2025, transitional housing must emerge. Better housing is a priority. Small developers are getting by with local work. We're carrying out a 25-home program ourselves in Caen, the renovation of barracks. What's more, corporate real estate projects are highly competitive. Even though we're used to this constraint, we need to return to economically sustainable projects. The worst of the crisis is not here yet. Project economics are crucial and ideology is untenable in the territories. The government should be more directive on these subjects. End of quote. Jérôme Martinez, head of the Bois de France label and at the Filière Bois Forêt stand at SIMI, confirms that the theme of transition finds a real echo in their activities and in the context of the arrival of the RE 2020, the new energy and environmental regulations for all new construction. With the support of Carbon 4, they are working with the entire industry to, and I quote, build a shared forward-looking vision with the aim of achieving carbon neutrality in the context of adapting forests to climate change. End of quote. France's forests are still sustainable, but we need to help them become so tomorrow. Today, the Office National des Forêts plants beech in Lorraine, which comes from the south of France. Because the climate is changing. There can be no decarbonation without the wood industry. Admittedly, design takes longer, but with the right skills, wood is a sustainable solution, and the history of construction proves it. And what about local players? I'd like to thank the Métropole du Grand Paris for responding to our request. Here is its answer with figures. Fully committed to the environmental transition and driven by the constant objective of improving the quality of life for its citizens, the Greater Paris metropolis highlighted a number of projects at the SIMI, including its vast Inventons la Métropole du Grand Paris architecture and urban planning competition, the largest in Europe, dedicated to the urban renewal of the region. It is now in its third edition. The first two editions attracted 77 sites in 70 municipalities, more than 2,860 bicycle parking spaces developed. 77 sites in 70 municipalities, more than 2,860 bicycle parking spaces developed, 13,000 housing units planned. 70% of projects are located in an urban renewal area, QPV. 6.5 hectares dedicated to urban agriculture, 15.6 hectares of vegetated surfaces, 6.5 hectares of outdoor spaces for public use. In terms of attractiveness, since 2018, the Métropole has been committed to revitalizing town centers via the Centre-Ville Vivant scheme, which has even had a dedicated property company since 2023. The Foncière Centre-Ville Vivant. It also launched its first Pôle d'attractivité d'envergure métropolitaine last November. In terms of innovation, we promote urban experimentation and local innovation through two schemes, Innover dans la ville and Quartier métropolitain d'innovation. We weren't able to get the opinion of the promotion, even though most of them were represented at the show. Their communications departments are sensitive, and it's true that our deadlines were tight. Our warmest thanks go to the three players who responded, proving their agility, their convictions, and their commitment. I've known this salon for a good 10 years. It has changed significantly. Attendance seems to be growing all the time. A lot of themes are focused on transition, whereas there was a time when BIM was the main topic. Even at Everton, new exhibitors linked to web applications, a suffering print media, recycled institutional stands. Much less wow effect, palpable anxiety, and yet an overflowing desire to get things done. And it's this energy that must be maintained against all odds. And a question for those of you who were at the show. How did you feel? Here, we hope to stay the course, continuing to offer you enriching testimonials. We already know that it won't be easy in the depths of the crisis, but we won't give up. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the team who always help me find alternatives to keep going. Thank you for listening, and see you next week for an interview with Comme d'Archi. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening.
And thanks to the sound engineer who was collaborating with us today.
Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.